Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Pijana Vallabha Girivardhari Kapijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari To the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purvajaka Acharya Ashtotar to the Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kwantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Okay, we'll give it a shot. Text 2, right? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Before reciting the Srimad, Narayana Namaskritya Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirihet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, I already did Om Namo. So, on this 25th day of April 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti-yoga Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 5, The Creative Impetus, Chapter 16, a description of Jambudweep. Text number 2. So this is prose, so I just recited it myself. Tatrapi priya vrata rata chadana padikataye saptabi sapta sindaba upaklipta yata etasya sapta dvipa vishesha vikalpas tvaya bhagavan kalusuchita etad evakilam aham manato lakshanatas chasarvam vijigyatsami. Translation. My dear Lord, the rolling wheels of Maharaj Priyavrata's chariot created 7 ditches in which the 7 oceans came into existence. Because of these 7 oceans, Bhumandala is divided into 7 islands. You have given a very general description of their measurement, names and characteristics. Now I wish to know of them in detail. Kindly fulfill my desire. And I'm just going to go back one verse here. So Parikshit is addressing Shukadeva Goswami here. And there's no purport. So I'm going to read the next one. Just read this translation. When the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead in His external feature, made of the material modes of nature, the gross universal form, the mind, is brought to the platform of pure goodness. In that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, who in his subtler form is self-effulgent and beyond the modes of nature. O my Lord, please describe vividly how that universal form, which covers the entire universe, is perceived. Purport. Maharaj Parikshit had already been advised by his spiritual master, Shukadeva Goswami, to think of the universal form of the Lord. And therefore, following the advice of his spiritual master, he continuously thought of that form. The universal form is certainly material, but because everything is an expansion of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, ultimately, nothing is material. Therefore, Parikshit Maharaj's mind was saturated with spiritual consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami has stated, Papantikataya buddhya harisambandhi vastunaha mumukshubi parityago vairagyam palgu katyate. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 255 to 256. Oh, this is 256, I believe. Everything, even that which is material, is connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, everything should be engaged in the service of the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur translates this verse as follows: Shri Hare Sevaya Yaha Hoy Anukula Vishaya Baliya Tyage Hoy Bhula. One should not give up anything connected with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking it material or enjoyable for the material senses. Close quote. Even the senses, when purified, are spiritual. When Maharaj Parikshit was thinking of the universal form of the Lord, his mind was certainly situated on the transcendental platform. Therefore, although he might not have had any reason to be concerned with detailed information of the universe, he was thinking of it in relationship with the Supreme Lord. And therefore, such geographical knowledge was not material, but transcendental. Elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.20, Narada Muni has said, Idam mi vishram bhagavan hivetaraha. The entire universe is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although it appears different from Him. Therefore, although Parikshit Maharaj had no need for geographical knowledge of this universe, that knowledge was also spiritual and transcendental because he was thinking of the entire universe as an expansion of the energy of the Lord. In our preaching work also, we deal with so much property and money and so many books bought and sold. But because these dealings are all pertain to the Krishna consciousness movement, they should never be considered material. That one is absorbed in thoughts of such management does not mean that he is outside of Krishna consciousness. If one rigidly observes the regulative principle of chanting 16 rounds of the Maha Mantra every day, his dealings with the material world for the sake of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement are not different from the spiritual cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this is an important introduction to this section of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the 5th canto. We're going to be hearing a lot of technical information, a lot of numbers, lengths, sizes, distances, that most likely will not comport with what we learned in 5th grade, or about the size of the earth and what's out there. But we have to have faith that somehow all this is true. And this is this what I just read here, how the universe is simply an expansion of the Lord. Idam Vishram Bhagavan Evetada, as Prabhupada quotes in the purport. That this Vishram, this universe, is Bhagavan. The universe is God. Then it goes on to say, but it appears not to be God. So how is it God? Well, we learn right in the Bhagavad-gita, in the 7th chapter, and why Krishna speaks this at this time is important. If you recall, in the 6th chapter, it's all about Ashtanga yoga, traditional meditative yoga, yama, niyama, asana, pratyahara, pranayama, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. Those are the 8 different limbs. And it's a science of how to fix the mind on Krishna with a technical way. It's not straight bhakti. But Krishna makes clear that the object of that meditation has to be me, in the heart. And then he gives a really nice description of the perfection, samadhi. In that state of samadhi, one is completely fixed in trance, thinking of me within the heart, the super soul. And he experiences the greatest happiness through transcendental senses and purified intelligence. And then Prabhupada would love to quote this phrase, Yam labdval chapadam labam manyante nadikam tada. That's in that verse, those series of verses. Once attaining this state, one thinks there is no greater attainment that there can be. In other words, it's a state in contemplating the Lord. It's like Shanta Ras, complete absorption and meditation on the Lord, the heart, and complete detachment from everything material. And there's happiness there. There's great bliss in that regard. So that's the samadhi, but it's not so easy to attain. And what does Arjuna say? He says, I can't do this. There's nothing. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, because it's all the mind. You're working on the mind. Krishna earlier in the chapter, he says, that the mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. The mind which is controlled and placed on Krishna is the best friend. If your mind is always naturally thinking of Krishna, this is a great boon. But that mind which is forcefully taking you away from Krishna and thinking about a million other things is your worst enemy. Because after all, what's the vehicle of the transmigration? It's the mind. When this gross body finally collapses, it's just a big machine, the subtle body goes on. The mind, intelligence, and ego takes you to the next body. It's very nicely explained at the beginning of the 15th chapter. So everything keys on the mind. And because we're human beings, we don't have to simply be victimized by the mind and have no agency. The intelligence can direct the mind, the senses to go here, do that, and the mind to do this rather than go there. And in this way we can be trained, or we can train the mind to always think of Krishna. That's the process of sadhana bhakti. So Arjuna, after hearing this process, going alone, sit like this,
and completely free of sex life, totally alone, and control the mind. Think of me. Arjuna said, chanchalam hi mana Krishna, pramati balavadridham, tasyaham niguham manye, bhairi was a duskaram. I like to give this verse especially because I lived in Miami for 6 years, and we're very conscious of hurricanes there, and that's what this is about. It says the mind is very restless, chanchalam hi mana Krishna, very stubborn, pramati balavadridham, balavad, very strong, wants to go here, wants to do that. I think trying to control that mind is as difficult as controlling the wind, exactly. And not just in a little breeze coming off the ocean here, but hurricane wind. There's no control. There's no way of controlling it. Now we have super hurricanes. So he pleaded, I can't do it. So Krishna says, yes, you can. It can be done through practice like that. So Arjuna was not very optimistic. So he said, well, what happens if I fail? That I'm like a riven cloud. In other words, I'm broken up. I didn't succeed in yoga, and I gave up my material life. So I got no standing. So Krishna said, no. Whatever you practice in this life, you'll pick up in the next life. Shuchinam shimitam gehe yoga brashta. If you break your yoga, you'll get a birth in a wealthy family, or even better, in a Suchi family, means the family of Vaishnava Brahmins, and you'll pick up where you left off. So there's no loss or diminution. So Arjuna said, okay, well that's good. But at the end, Krishna gave him the biggest encouragement. You know the verse? Yogi nam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shuddhavam bhajateyo mam same yuktatamamata. That the best yogi of all, forget these Ashtanga yogis off, meditating in a cave somewhere. The best yogis are those who are always thinking of me with great faith and bhakti and love. Yogi nam is madgaten antaratmana. They're always thinking of me within the heart. Shuddhavan, full of faith. Bhajate, they practicing bhakti. When you hear bhajate, yomam samayuktatamamata. Now, how do we get from where we are now to that point? So then he begins the next chapter. Very nice. It says, Maya saktamana partha yogam yunjan manashaya asangshyam samagramam yatadyasati tachanu. Now listen to me, Arjuna. I'm going to now tell you how you can easily train the mind to be attached to me. You don't have to go anywhere and practice all this Ashtanga Yoga. I have another system that's practical for everybody. And Prabhupada explains that these middle 6 chapters are the essence of the Gita, beginning with chapter 7 and beginning with this verse. So Jnanam Tayam Savigyanam. So this process will give you knowledge and realize knowledge. In other words, you get, and but it's rare. Out of Manushanam Sahasreshri Kastayadri Siddhi, out of many thousands and millions of people, one tries to perfection, not material perfection, but spiritual perfection. And of those who achieve some realization, hardly one knows me in truth. But this process, I'm telling you, you'll be able to know me in truth. Okay, what is it? So now he starts explaining the basis of what's explained here. Bhoomarapa Olanovaya. He goes through through the 8 material energies first, starting with the most obvious, earth. Everywhere we look, there's manifestation of earth, right? Earth, water, or liquids in general, fire, radiant energy, air, gases, and ether, space. It gets finer and finer and finer. Those 5, they're my energies. But these are lower energies. Apareya mitastranyam. These are all apara, not transcendental. Prakriti vidime param. But there's another prakriti that is transcendental. What is that? That's us. Jiva bhuta. Idam dayate jagat. And the jivas, which concludes us, we're kind of sustaining the universe as a whole, all of the jivas. Meaning that in our little body here, the only reason it stays together as a body because we're in here. As soon as you leave, the body's dead. You have to bury it, burn it, get rid of it. So Krishna is explaining how this universe is set up, because everything is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and then there's subtle energies, mind, intelligence, and ego. And so then he starts explaining, now I'm going to teach you how to see me everywhere in your daily experiences. The famous first one, Raso Homa Sukhantiya. I am that taste in water. This is how the living entity interacts with the world, through the senses. Right? You taste the water through the tongue, and you're interacting with the world, because I am that taste. So in other words, when you drink water, think of me, because all these are my energies, including you. But how to experience that, by your interactions with the world. The light of the sun and the moon, the fragrance of the earth, the ability in man. It goes through things that we experience every day. So if we can remember these verses when we go through that, when we experience these things, we'll be Krishna conscious. And this is the whole idea of the universal form. To see the universal form not just as collections of water and earth, but to see that they're just, Prabhupada wants to mention, like the external, quote, external body of the Lord. In other words, it's all moving by His intelligence. Maya jakshena pakati suyate sachadatsanam. That this is in the 9th chapter. That this whole material energy is doing so many things, right? It's creating, right? Maintaining, destroying, right? Srishti, stiti, pralaya, sadhana. This is in the Brahma Samhita. But it says this is like a shadow of Maya. She's working under my instruction. Maya jakshena, by my supervision. So if someone is like building a building, and that person is the I forget what they call it, the foreman of the work crew, right? So these guys are just lifting, buckets of cement, whatever they're doing, building. But they're doing it under the instruction of the foreman. So really, the whole thing is a manifestation of the foreman's intelligence when it gets ready. And of course behind him, because you got demigods doing it, behind them, is the intelligence figuring out, making the blueprint, the architect, right? And behind the architect is Krishna, giving the intelligence. So Krishna is doing everything. He's behind everything. So when you know that, then you can see this world as a manifestation of God. And that's why Prabhupada says, therefore, I've heard him say it several times recently in lectures, and it's right, that for the pure devotee who's seeing Krishna everywhere and seeing Him work everywhere, there's nothing material. Even the material world is spiritual, because it's a manifestation of the ultimate Spirit's energy. But then the kicker is how to retain that vision all the time. You may understand it intellectually for some time, but in our lives, how to do it? You've got to use those material energies in the service of the Spirit. Prabhupada didn't quote that verse here, but that's really 255. There's 2 verses describing vairagya. Vairagya is an essential element of our sadhana, and it's actually the fruit of sincere bhakti. Right at the beginning of Bhagavatam, 2nd chapter, 1st canto, when Sutta Goswami is answering the question of the sages, what is that dharma that can give real satisfaction to the soul? This is their first question. And he answers, first he praises the question. I forget this answer, but the deck 125, he's praising it. A very nice question, because the answer to this question can please everybody. And then he answers, Savai Pungsang Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Hokshaje. That Dharma is really Dharma, Supreme Dharma, which evokes pure devotion, devotional love for Krishna, who is at Hokshaja. Now, what names they use are important. Just like in the Bhagavad-gita, Arjuna addresses Krishna as Madhusudana. He was the killer of the Madhu demon, because Arjuna wants Krishna to slay his doubts. So he addresses him as this name. It's in the purport. The commentators get into all the fine points. It's wonderful. So why at Hokshaja? So at Hokshaja is a name you'll find in the Bhagavatam several places. And what it simply means the transcendent Lord. Ada Akshaja is made of 3 elements. Ja is short for Janma, or generate, give birth to. Aksha is your eyes, and the eyes stand in for all the senses. So Akshaja means knowledge that's generated from the senses and the mind. In other words, material knowledge. But Krishna is Ada Akshaja. Ada means down. He pushes that down. He's transcendental to what you can glean through your mind and senses. You have to receive it from a transcendental source. It's revealed knowledge. You see what I'm saying? So at Hokshaja is very important. So but the significance is you have to have faith in that, because you can't see Krishna directly. And that's why you need a teacher, you need a realized soul who can convince you, and plant that faith with the Bhakti Lata Bija. That's an important, so I'll practice this. Just like people say, what are you guys chanting that mantra? They have no idea what we're doing, But we know, this is an ancient process, Harinama, Harinama, it's authorized, and there's so many great souls who have achieved perfection in this, so yeah, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And you can feel the result. But the faith has to be there. So then he says, this Dharma, or this bhakti that's produced by the Dharma, there's a criterion for it, because there's all kinds of cheating religions also that may appear to be religions, but they don't give you this pure bhakti. Ahoituki apratiyata. Ahoituki means no material desire. Ahoituki comes from the word hetu, which means cause. So it's understood to be material cause, which is mostly what causes people to act. I got to go to work, I got to get up early, I got to drive. They're doing all that because they want to get the money to buy what they need. It's fruitive. So this bhakti to Krishna has to be ahoituki, no material motive. We're not serving Krishna so that he'll provide our material means, give us this our daily bread. No, we're not there. Well, the only thing, the real sincere prayer is prayer for pure devotion. Like Lord Chaitanya has taught us. Nadanang, najanang, na sundarim, na kavitam vahakajadishigam. Mama janmani janmani shre bhavata bhaktir, ahoituki tvihi. This is the same word, ahoituki. He says, I don't want wealth. I'm not praying to you for wealth, chanting the name to get wealth, for followers, for a beautiful wife, for kavitam, which can mean different things, great knowledge, jagadisha. Even though you're the Lord of the universe, obviously you could give me any of those things, but I'm not praying for that. Then what are you praying for? Mama janmani janmani shure, oh Lord. That implies, birth after birth, that I'm not praying for mukti either, which is the most coveted by those who are intelligent, material thing. It's still a material thing. Then what are you praying for? Mama janmani janmani shure, bhavatar bhakti rahoitaki tuhi. For unmotivated, pure devotion to you, birth after birth. And so there's so many other verses I could quote where the great acharyas are praying for pure prema. That's the real thing. So, with that in mind, that's the criterion of real dharma. Then what happens when you practice that dharma? Even the dharma is a path. In other words, you don't get it right away. That's why you have sadhana bhakti, bhakti marga, a path. So he says, Vasudeva Bhagavati, bhakti-yoga payojataha, janayat yasu, vairagyam, jnanam cha yadahoitikam. So just by practicing devotional service, sadhana bhakti, you quickly develop vairagya. And if you're doing it sincerely, we can say, yeah, I remember that. I've had so many desires, I want to get high, I want to do this. And then I started chanting Hare Krishna, and I was hanging out with the devotees, doing a lot of kirtan. I don't want to do those things anymore. That vairagya is very important, because it's all those attachments that keep you coming back and bound up to this world. So janayat yasu, quickly, relatively quickly. You don't have to wait for perfection to get the vairagya. And knowledge, they go together. Knowledge and vairagya. Knowledge itself can give you vairagya. Just like the people, a lot of people become vegetarian on the basis of what they learn about what meat is. What's in the meat, how it can make you sick, how it's more expensive, how it's ruining the earth. There's probably a list of 12 different reasons why you should give up meat on the material platform, right? So that knowledge says, oh, what have I been doing? I can't eat that anymore. So let me become, now I'll eat this fake meat. What are they called? Impossible meat. So you're not really getting detached from the taste. You just, you know what I mean? But still, knowledge is a strong impetus. And we know that these material attachments, even in the mode of goodness, will still bring us back to birth, death, old age, and disease. So we don't want to do that. And it will impede our bhakti. It can ruin our bhakti. Atyahara priyasascha. So by that knowledge, you strive for pure bhakti, which brings vairagya. And Krishna, how does Krishna? He gives you the higher taste. What's that verse? Balaram, you know this one. Vishayava nivartante. Yes. Vishayava nivartante niraharasya. Niraharasya. You may forcibly give up things that you know are bad for you, you know? But unfortunately, the taste for them remains, right? There's probably 100 million people in this country who are on a diet trying to lose weight at this time. I'm not going to say a majority of them are women, but we'll leave that for the scientists. But anyway, a lot of guys. So it's obviously bad for your health and bad for your looks, you know. So, but unfortunately, you become addicted to Doritos and all kinds of snacks and whatever, right? Ice cream. So how to go on the diet? So okay, by force of will, I won't do it, you know. So you do it for some time, but it's tough because everywhere you look, there's a temptation, you know, the advertisements, the stores and everything. So then, even though you have the knowledge, you don't have the higher taste of Krishna. And so generally people fall off the wagon and they get fatter than they used to be. So this isn't going to work. But Krishna says here, Vishaya niraharasya rasa varjamas param drishtra. Here again, the drift. If you perceive directly the param, who is that param? Param means transcendent, transcendental. Lord. In other words, if you have direct experience of the transcendence, there's a pleasure there. There's a nectar there. There's bhakti rasa. You may not be a pure devotee, but you're experiencing it by chanting the holy name chiefly. And that negates the lower taste. Then you can remain fixed in consciousness. Otherwise, it's impossible. If you just try to do it by force of will, this is the impersonalists. They don't think there's nobody out there. They don't have the form. They don't believe in the form, the name, the prasadam, nothing. You know, all they believe in is that there's Brahman is there, and if I can get the Brahman, I'm absorbed. I won't have to take birth again. But the higher taste isn't there, and therefore there's a verse. Yen ye ravindaksha vimukta maninas tvaya yasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya aruha kuchena padam padam tata papanchado nadri yushmarangriya. Prabhupada would always quote this one against the Mayavadis, that their vairagya is mentioned here, palgu vairagya. This verse is actually about that. Prapanchikriya buddhya. Prapanchikriya means material. Thinking, buddhya means thinking material. What? Hari sambandhi vastanak. Those things which are directly related to Krishna. And mumukshubi, desiring mukti. I mentioned mukti is a material thing. So if you just desire mukti, it may be, you know, a better destination than just a gross materialist, but it's still material. And therefore, bhakti-yoga, they give up everything. They give up the deity, they give up the name. It's all material. Anything you can perceive with your senses. So what are you left with? Just your own consciousness, you know. Vairagam, and it's weak. Polga means weak. It's impossible to sustain. Even the mundane Mayavadis, they come down again from their so-called state of realization to open hospitals and things and do some welfare work, you know, because they don't get the higher taste. We do welfare work, but it's the highest welfare work. Chanting on the street, giving out books, this is the greatest welfare work, and it's part of bhakti. So it's completely authorized and it's blessed. So the other verse, the companion verse to this, what is real vairagya? Real vairagya is called yukta vairagya. Yukta vairagya. So it says, anasaktasya vishayan. With no attachment to the object of the senses for sense gratification. This word vishaya. Yatarham apayunjata. But as appropriate, engaging them in Krishna's service. That's what a temple is. We're engaging the like every time I come in, from the back door, I see that rack with all the ingredients. There's all kinds of different flour and that they store it back there now. So it's not prasadam yet. It's the ingredients that will be turned into prasadam. So that's engagement of matter in Krishna service. And the whole idea is our mind, our body, our senses. Krishna has a little list. Prana, Artha, Diya, Vacha. He's speaking to his friends as he walks among the trees. He's praising the trees for their tolerance, and their munificence. is that you want something from a tree, just take the fruit. The tree's not going to complain. You know, you take the fruit and the flowers, you know, and even if you cut the tree down, it doesn't protest, it's so tolerant. So that's the ideal. That's why he has it in the verse. So he's walking through the forest and he's praising these trees. And he says, they're models for the ideal of human life. Etavad janmasapalyam dehinami hidehishu prana ata diya vacha shreya asharanam sada. So he says, if you want to make your human life fruitful, janmasapalyam dehinami hidehishu, then every embodied human being should with their prana, means their life energy, artha, money, diya, intelligence, and words, do welfare activity for other living entities. Now, what's the best welfare activity? Giving them Krishna consciousness. That's the ultimate welfare activity. So he says Shreya Acharanam. Shreya means the good, and we know that it really means the ultimate good. So really, with our life energy, with our wealth, if we have any, intelligence and words, we should give people Krishna consciousness. This is a verse that's quoted, you know, for preaching. So that's real vairagya. When you're not attached to the object of the senses, but to use them where appropriate in the service of Krishna. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. You're not bound up to the objects of the senses. If you're trying to enjoy something, then that plants a desire seed in your mind, and at the time of death, the mind and the intelligence carries you out of the body and is full of all these material desires. So you're into another body. We've been doing that for millions of the births of Brahma. But here, if you have this real vairagya based on service to Krishna, then it's yukta vairagya, and it takes you back to Godhead, because you're nirbandha Krishna sambandhe. You're not becoming bound up to the object of the senses. You're coming bound up to Krishna. We want that. That's where our bondage should be, and attraction should be to serve Krishna. So one of the ways a process, a devotee, when he goes through the world and sees everything, because you study the Shastra and you live according to it. You're not trying to enjoy it. You see everything related to Krishna. You see a tree, you see the building, you see anything. People walking on the street. There's a super soul in there, you know? And they're bewildered people. Their minds are taking them here and there and here and there. But you see through the eyes of Shastra. That's a simple thing. And if you do that, then everything is spiritual. Prabhupada will quote this verse. It's there in the beginning of the teachings of Sanatana Goswami of what Chaitanya Sanatana Goswami in the CC, in chapter 20 of the Madhya Lila. So he says, Eka desha stitis yagner jyotsna vistaraniyata padasya brahmana shaktis tadhedam akilam jagat. So Eka desha stitis yagner, a fire is in one place. It's like here we have a fire sacrifices sometimes. So someone walks in over there, and there's a fire. Dayanidhi started a little fire, you know, the initiation, whatever. So the fire is there, and if it really gets going, of course you can see the light of the fire, but you may even feel a little of the heat, you know. And there's smoke. That's why we had the exhaust fans in here for years. I think they're still there. So the fire is in one place, and if it's a fairly large fire, it will spread its heat and light for some distance. So Eka desha stitis agni is fire, jyotsna vistaraniyata, and it's spreading its light and heat. Similarly, padasya brahmana shaktis, the Supreme Brahman is spreading his Shakti, is in one place, Goloka Vrindavan. But he's spreading his Shakti throughout all of the universes, throughout the creation. Shakti, tata idam akilam jagat. Akilam means jagat, through the whole universe. So this is actually what's going on. There's nothing that's separate from Krishna. It's all God, because it's all Krishna's energies. Now, when we use those energies in His service, then we become realized, we become purified. So there's one verse I like to quote from chapter 87 of the 10th canto. You'll never hear this verse quoted by anyone else, guaranteed. Well, I shouldn't guarantee that, but it's a rare verse. But it nicely embodies this whole idea and gives us a warning too. Twadanupatam kulai midamapma suripriyavat. Chadatittaton maketu hiyate priyatmanicha. Nabadadamandaho asadupasana mahano. Yadun shayabame urubaye kushariribata. Now, there's a lot in this verse. A beautiful commentary by my old friend, Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. These last 10 verses of the last 10 chapters of the 10th canto were done wholly and solely by him. The translation and the commentary too. Gopi Puranadana Prabhu. He's a Sanskrit scholar who worked with Vidyananda Maharaj, and I was the third member, the editor, English editor, in the 80s to finish the Bhagavatam, the last 6 volumes of Bhagavatam. So, what does it say? So this is one of the personified Vedas. He's praying to Garbhodakshai Vishnu, I believe. And he says, Twadanupatam kulayam idam atmasurit priyavat. That this human body, a human body is perfectly suited to serve you. Kulayam idam atmasurit priyavat. And when someone uses his body, mind, intelligence, which is the whole thing, in your service, then that body becomes his best friend and very dear, because it's paraphernalia for serving Krishna. It's not something dragging you to hell with all, but rather it's you are using the body as paraphernalia for serving Krishna. It's just like the sacred things on this altar; they're all holy. So, and then on your side, from within the heart, as the super soul, you're very happily in providing the intelligence and everything. So everything is nice. But alas, those who don't take their pleasure in serving you, and this is a key idea, is that we know that this is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. From the very first kirtan, if you really throw yourself into it, you're going to feel some joy, which is miraculous after coming as Kali Yuga. It's so powerful. If you can just concentrate your mind a little bit on the holy name, you get joy. And then that plants the seed. Oh, what is that? Let me check this out. Okay, japa is so important, and then reading the books and serving now. So, but you have to be able to, throw down your doubts and enter into the process. So, but alas, those who don't take their pleasure in serving you, what happens to them? So, bhata means nabadadamanti, oh, how serious this is. Asad upasanaya, every word is important. Asad means the impermanent. This is all asat. It's all changing. It's still Krishna's energy, but it's not spiritual energy. Asad upasana, they worship the impermanent. This is the famous, in the Bible, what do they have? Mammon. Those who worship mammon, material things, greed, then they go to hell. Demons. So asadupasana atmahano, that's the virtual spiritual suicide for the soul. To become absorbed in matter. How can I enjoy it? Can I control it? How can I take more from it? That's the contrast to the person in the first 2 lines who is using everything he's got in Krishna's service. What's the fate? In this trying to fulfill these unfulfillable desires, Brahme, wandering throughout the universe, and then Kusharirabhata, with all kinds of subhuman bodies, and suffering like anything. Alas, he says, alas. So this is the choice we have as human beings. Only human beings have the choice. Animals don't have the choice. They just go through. So, if we use our body, mind, and senses, everything we have, to stay connected to Krishna through bhakti-yoga, then we can very happily go through this life, and we can tolerate everything, and go back to Godhead. This is auspicious. But if we fail to try to take our pleasure in bhakti and try to rather take pleasure in sense gratification, then we can get completely entangled at, and we're kind of completely absorbed in worshiping matter, mammon. And in this way, we go down, and we can even lose the human form of life. So I could give you the reference if you're interested in looking it up and read that purport. But here, back to our verse here, we're launching into this description of the universe. And we should always remember that this is an external manifestation of Krishna, And when we are in our little corner of the universe, San Diego, we should see everything. We should try to remember through the Bhagavad-gita, that 7th chapter, we can see, the sun, light of the sun, that's Krishna's energy. You see? He's waking, and everything that we see here it becomes spiritualized, even though it's material. That frame, which is framing that beautiful painting of Lord Chaitanya in the Kirtan, that's not a material thing. Out of all billions of frames in this world, these few frames are very, very sacred. We should keep them clean and nice and maintain, get more frames. These wonderful benches that have been donated by Bhakti Joseph, they're all now, they're happy because they're in a temple. We should see that. Yeah, and they're making Joseph happy because he donated them. And so this is how, and we should go out, and when we try to engage people in Krishna consciousness, we're fishing, just like in the Bible. Wasn't it Peter was the fisher of men? I think Saint Peter is that find that spark, that little receptivity, where there's some fertile ground, and to plant some interest. The best thing is the books, because the intellect, the intelligence is so important. If you can interest people, then they'll become curious, come by, And in this way, try to save as many souls as possible, as we've been saved. Even if we don't go back to God at this lifetime, we're on our way. No loss, no diminution. But we should try to go back to that. All right, I've kind of gone over time. So this is how we're launching in this. It may get a little technical, this dimension and everything. It doesn't quite jibe with what we learned in 3rd grade. But we should know that this is its transcendental information. And everything that I learned in 3rd grade has completely been negated by now anyway. That was in 1953, whatever it was. 56. But so this material knowledge is constantly being revised and thrown out, but this is eternal verities, truth. Okay, I'll stop there. If there's any questions, comments, locally or remotely. Okay, Saul, you're on.
Hare Krishna. I just had a quick question. Earlier you mentioned that, what was that word? When you do devotional service and you get knowledge, or not?
Vairagya?
Vairagya. Yeah,
Vairagya.
And you said you could get it through knowledge too?
Knowledge is a concomitant of Vairagya.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very important. They go together.
I saw someone in the 11th canto was reading it with Mogalita Prabhu. That what they called. Prabhupada said, these people who study the Gita or anything like that, or study the Vedas from an analytical way of, or like from a study, like just studying it, they don't really understand the true essence of bhakti.
Now this was where did you read it?
In the 11th canto.
Yeah, that's not Prabhupada.
Oh, no, it's not. Yeah, you're right. Because he left. But anyways. Yeah, but you see, like...
He's probably a commentator, because a lot of he's translating the commentators.
And then, but you see these people who study, like his scholars or people in universities, and then they come with the conclusion that the importance of the Gita is like part of like the 11th chapter, the universal form.
Yeah, the universal form.
But it's overall material. But why don't they get that knowledge if they're studying?
Because you have to receive the knowledge through the proper medium. This Prabhupada's one of his favorites. He would say the transparent via media. But the media, via media is something else. He meant medium. And medium means, just like you get electricity through the medium of the wires and everything, you know what I mean? And because it's a material thing, it works fine, But when you hear transcendental knowledge, it has to come from someone who's practicing, who's realized. That's why you hear again and again and again. What does Sanatana Goswami say? I think it's his verse. What is that? Vaishnava mukhodgirnam putam hadikatamitam savanam naiva kartavyam sarpotishtam yatapaya. I'm sure you've heard the English of this. A Vaishnava mukhodgirnam, from the mouth of an Avaishnav, a non-Vaishnav, one should never hear transcendental sound. Vaishnavam Putam Harikata talks about Krishna, which are by nature purifying. But if they come in that way, don't listen. Shravanam naiva kartavim, never listen, because it's like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. Now, why use that analogy? Because it can taste just like regular milk. But as soon as a poisonous snake gets into it, there's venom in there. It may be tasteless, but it's going to have its effect. It can kill you. So hearing this Harikatha, Krishna Katha, talks about Krishna, description of the Shastra, from the non-devotees, can ruin your bhakti, because they don't really understand. They're not in the right mood. They're trying to exploit it. Prabhupada would again and again, in the first canto especially, because he wrote that in India. The books that he wrote in India have a certain Indian flavor. The examples he given, the famous Bhagavat Saptaha. Have you heard that? 7-day sessions of hearing Bhagavatam. In big cities, you'll have a Bhagavat recited pronunciation, very perfect, can sing, even sometimes they cry, but sometimes they fake it. They're like chewing some chili, to make themselves cry. It's all an act. It's 7 days and people pay to come in here, In other words, it's not, and always what they read is rasa dance. Which is not to be read right away. It's important to read the 5th canto. Yeah, we got to haul through it, but it's important. And from first canto, Prabhupada makes that point in his first purports. You got to read it from. So the idea is that it can be contaminated. Now, practically speaking, we don't have bhakti saptahas out here, but we have a lot of kirtaniyas who are not really devotees. In fact, they can be even atheists, but they know there's a market now because Hare Krishnas are preached so much that we shouldn't listen to that kirtan, even though it sounds very nice. Don't listen to it. There are so many beautiful kirtans by devotees, and of course by Prabhupada, the most potent. So that's the idea, that it's subtle. We're talking about subtle things here. The subtle mood. I'll tell you, in reference to that, it's getting late. In the 4th canto, I don't know the Sanskrit and I don't know the reference, but I can give it to you. But it's praising the voice, not even the words, but the voice of the spiritual master, of the pure devotee, carries the mercy particles, saffron mercy particles from the lotus feet of Krishna. Yeah, the only place in the books where that phrase appears. The famous purport, verse and purport. In other words, we're dealing with subtle energies here. And Prabhupada would sometimes say, even if you don't understand, someone doesn't understand anything, if they just hear me, chant the Chintamani prayers. I mean, devotees can understand that. I don't know what it means, but that's so celestial. The way, the emotion. You know what I'm saying? So the idea is that the subtle energy of the faith and the devotion will come through, even if the language is not so perfect. This is why Prabhupada published his first canto. He says right at the beginning, he says, "I know this is my second language; it's not perfect, but the sincere people will understand. Will see the value, And then as soon as he had a chance, he had Hayagriva edit it, so it would be, because if it is nice English, it's easier for people to get into. So that's why you have to be careful. And these scholars who make a subject, as one of the subjects in the university, they may be familiar. Like I have a book on my shelf because it was technical. The whole CC was translated by a Karmi translator, and I used it for reference when I was working on the CC. Because some things are technical, you need that. But I'm not going to go and read that book instead of Prabhupada's book. Come on, give me a break. I mean, I refer to it as a reference work, but I'm not going to say, "Oh, this is so nifty." It doesn't work that way. So that's why Prabhupada's books are invaluable, because they're all written, by a pure devotee, and they have potency. You can see. These other books were out there. The Gita was out there for years. There was a because the English were in India, It's in the 1700s. You know, that some of the English went there, learned Sanskrit, came back. The Sanskrit English dictionary that I referred to was written by an Englishman. What do you know? I mean, writing a dictionary is pretty technical, so you can use it. And so that also came to America, because English came to America. So you had these transcendentalists. Emerson was one. Thoreau. There's a bunch of them, and they would read the Gita sometimes. In fact, we use one quote from Thoreau sometimes on the back of the Gita. I think I had a wonderful day or something. I read the Gita. So because he's famous, so he says, "Oh, Thoreau likes it. All right, I'll read it." But nobody became a devotee from those Gitas. I read a little Gita, Penguin. I wasn't I said, well, it's fascinating, but I had no idea what I'm supposed to do from this. I didn't even know there was something. But Prabhupada's Gita, you read the introduction, and whoa, it's such a rush. He said, you read the introduction, the whole thing came out. So that's why we have so much literature we can read. Okay, all glory to Srila Prabhupada. Wait a minute. Are there any...
We have a question in that.
Okay, I wonder who it can be. Go ahead.
Dravida Prabhu Dandavata.
Oh, Vijay Krishna. Go ahead.
Prabhu, related to the 9 stages from Shraddha to Prem, my question is, what happens when the changing goes from nishta, steadiness, to ruchi, taste?
Yeah. Well, of course, nishta means firm faith. Nishta is the same as Shraddha, as defined by Lord Chaitanya in his teaching to Sanatana Goswami. Shraddha shabde vishwas kohe sudid anishchoy, Krishna bhakti koli sarva karma kata hoy. That Shraddha or Nishta is firm faith, that just by bhakti, all my aspirations will be fulfilled. I don't have to do anything else. I have to make a living, whatever, but I can do it within the context of bhakti, do it in a Krishna conscious way. I'm not going to, I have full faith now because of what I've already experienced, because your narta nivritti is there, right? Not 100%, but a high enough percent so that you have this firm faith. And we should also understand that there's also some ruchi there. Even in the more neophyte stages, there's some ruchi, otherwise we wouldn't go on. You say, yeah, it's kind of dry now, but I remember that wonderful kirtan, so therefore I know it's there, and I can, get back to that. I remember that wonderful festival or something. So the ruchi is it doesn't wait on nishta. There's also ruchi, but when you're on the nishta platform, that ruchi is more constant and intense. You know what I'm saying? Everything about Krishna is tasty. The holy name and the Tulsi Puja, the preaching, the deity worship, everything, the festivals. It's all Krishna. It's all Krishna, different ways of serving Krishna. So you have a natural taste because more vairagya is there. The taste for material thing is waned practically to nil. Like what is that? Yadavadi Mamacheta Krishna Padadavini, that Prabhupada always quotes this verse, I heard him. Yamunacharya. He was an emperor for a while. Then he became, back to great acharya. So he says, ever since I've been tasting every moment the service of the lotus feet of Nandanandana, that's a ruchi, the great taste. Now, whenever I think of sex life, all the sex life he had, as an emperor, you have so much as you want. My mouth twists in distaste, and I spit at the thought. In other words, it's not like, oh my God, I better bring myself back to the lotus feet of Krishna. Come on, mind, get at it. It's like Bilva Mangal Thakur. He was bothered. He said, okay, I'm going to cut out these eyes. I flinch every time I think of that. But then his Karnamrita is filled with all kinds of Tadidam Abanatam Tamalinam Tadadabilojan Tarka Viramam Mudita Mutata Bhaktatan Bimbam Bukata Veni Vilas Jivatam. He doesn't have any eyes, physical eyes, but he's saying, oh, he's coming before my eyes, the spiritual eyes. Tadidnamapanatam tamalanidam, with his beautiful blackish complexion like a tamal tree. Tadada vilochana, his eyes are moving here and there, looking at all the cows and all the gopis. Tadakabir, those eyes are like beautiful like stars. Tadakabir Rama, very attractive. Mudita bhakta, his face is very, very joyful. Or it can mean muditam udita bhakta, that his face is joyful and looks just like the rising full moon, you know. Like Mukadita Venu Vilad, he's holding his flute to his lips and playing it very delightfully. So you can imagine what he's tasting, you know, as he's composing these verses. So the idea is that the nishta comes from, you know, serious practice of sadhana bhakti, anartha nivritti, and everything about Krishna becomes more and more attractive, and that matures into actual attraction for the person Krishna, which matures into bhava, which is just this side of prema, you know, the ecstatic love. So it's like stirring a big vat of sugar water, you know, until it becomes thicker and thicker, syrupy, and then it's thicker and thicker, and finally it's like a candy, you know, rock candy. That's the prema. So it's a process. That's the best I can do. You know, I'm still at the point of struggling to get an art in the Vritti, but okay, Vijay?
Yes, sorry, Prabhu?
Is that okay?
Oh, I don't know what to say.
You can.
Prabhu, you're amazing. Hare Krishna.
I'll tell you what's amazing, that I gave this class. I could hardly speak this morning, but somehow Krishna gave me that. I'm going to go to the doctor and see if I can see something. But if there's something more I can do, maybe I should just give more classes. Maybe that'll help. All glory to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. But I know I can't lead many kirtans anymore.